Hi there. It's Godsinger's morning study, and it is September 27th, 2025. So, a couple of days ago, we were reading Matthew chapter 24, talking about the signs of the end of the age and when he would come, and he mentioned the abomination of desolation. And it's in verse 15 right here. So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Right? Then all this says, get out as fast as you can, right? And this is for the Jewish people, right? But the one who's on the housetop not go to take one in his house, one in the field. Alas, for women who are pregnant and nursing, pray that your flight may not be on the Sabbath. Right? For there will be great tribulation such as has been seen from the beginning of the world until now, no, and never will be. Right? And immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be dark, and the moon will not give its light, the stars will fall from the heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Right? Then he'll come. Okay. That's a period of 7 years, and we get that from Daniel. Okay. And this is Daniel chapter 9. Okay. After 62 weeks, an appointed one shall be cut off and shall have nothing. And the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Its end shall come with a flood, and the end there shall be war. Desolations are decreed, and he will make a strong covenant of many for 1 week. Okay, he will make a strong covenant of many for 1 week. That's 7 years. That's the tribulation, right? Okay. And for half of the weeks he shall put an end to sacrifice and offering. Okay? There'll be an agreement made, and then for 3.5 years. Right? And I think there's something in chapter 11 too. Right? Check it out. It was. We're going to go over here in a second. 11:31. Okay. Long chapters, huh? Forces from him. Right. At the appointed time he shall return and come into the south, but it shall not be this time as it was before. For ships of Kittim shall come against him, and he shall be afraid and withdraw and turn back and be enraged and take action against the holy covenant. He shall turn back and pay attention to those who forsake the holy covenant. Forces from him shall appear and profane the temple and fortress, and shall take away them the regular burnt offering, and they shall set up the abomination that makes desolate. There you go. Abomination of desolation. He shall seduce with flattery those who violate the covenant, but the people who know their God shall stand firm and take action. And the wise among the people shall make many understand. Though some days they shall stumble by sword and flame, by captivity and plunder. When they stumble, they shall receive a little help. And many shall join themselves to them with flattery. That's the abomination. And it speaks of it in Revelations, and we'll cover that. This is the gotquestions.org site, okay? And I'll put the link in the description. This is a great place. What is the abomination of desolation, okay? Jesus spoke of a coming abomination of desolation in the Olivet Discourse, as he referenced a future event mentioned in Daniel 9:27, right? In Matthew 24:15-16, we just read both of those. Jesus says, so when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, then those in Judea must flee to the mountains. Right? An abomination is something that causes disgust or hatred, and desolation is a state of complete emptiness or destruction. Okay? Jesus warned that something or someone that people detested would stand in the temple someday. When that horror occurred, residents of Judea should seek cover without delay. Other translations speak of the abomination that causes desolation. Right? The sacrilegious object that causes desolation. These are different words. And that horrible thing. Right? The Amplified Bible adds a note that the abomination of desolation is the appalling sacrilege that astonishes and makes desolate. Jesus referenced Daniel in his words in the Olivet Discourse. That's Matthew 24, right? The prophet Daniel mentioned the abomination of desolation in 3 places. Okay, this is Daniel. And we read 2 of these, right? Right? He will make a firm covenant with many for 1 week, which is 7 years. But in the middle of the week, he will put a stop to sacrifice and offering. And the abomination of desolation will be on a wing of the temple until the decreed destruction is poured out on the desolator. Okay, that's 27 forces. Forces shall be mustered by him, and they shall defile the sanctuary fortress, and then they shall take away the daily sacrifices and place there the abomination of desolation. Okay. And this one I'm read from the time that the regular sacrifice is abolished and the abomination of desolation is set up, there would be 1,290 days. Yeah, that's 3.5 years. Right? So, like I said, this is for the Jews, okay? When they set up the new temple, okay, they'll start the sacrifices again, okay? And we know Jesus was sacrificed once for all and forever. And sacrifices are done away with if you Jews who don't believe in that Jesus was the Messiah, right? There's a lot of them. Okay, regardless of whether the abomination of desolation is a person or a thing, Daniel predicted the following. Right? 1, a future ruler will make a treaty with the people of Israel. Hasn't happened yet. The terms of this treaty would be for 1 week, which we take to be a period of 7 years. Okay, that's the tribulation. Right? Midway through this time, the ruler will gather his troops and put an end to the sacrifices and offerings in the temple. At that time, the ruler will desecrate the temple, setting up some type of sacrilegious object, right? Desolation. The desecration of the temple will continue until the judgment of God is finally meted out on the ruler and his followers 1,290 days, 3.5 years, and 1 month later. Okay. Daniel's prophecies about the abomination and desolation seem to have at least partial fulfillment in 167 BC when a Greek ruler by the name of Antiochus IV desecrated the temple in Jerusalem. Antiochus called himself Epiphanes, illustrious one, or God manifest. He set up an altar to Zeus over the altar of burnt offering, and he sacrificed a pig on the altar. And all things that they hate, right? Antiochus went even further in his atrocities, slaughtering a great number of the Jews and selling others into slavery. And he issued decrees forbidding circumcision and requiring Jews to sacrifice to pagan gods and eat pig meat. What Antiochus did certainly qualifies as an abomination, but it was not a complete fulfillment of Daniel's prophecy. Antiochus Epiphanes did not enter a covenant with Israel for 7 years, for example, right? And in Matthew 24, stop. Jesus, speaking some 200 years after Antiochus' evil actions, spoke of Daniel's prophecy as having a still future fulfillment. Okay? The question then becomes, when, after Jesus' day, was the abomination of desolation prophecy fulfilled? Are we still waiting for fulfillment? The preterist view is that Jesus' warning in Matthew 24 concerned events leading up to the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. In this view, the abomination of desolation probably occurred during the Roman occupation of Jerusalem when the Roman army brought their heathen images and standards into the temple courts. We take a futurist view, right? That's me too, right? Which sees the abomination of desolation prophecy as still future. Right? In our view, Jesus was referring to the Antichrist, who in the end times will establish a covenant with Israel for 7 years and then break it by doing something similar to what Antioch Epiphanes did in the temple. The sacrilegious object called the Abomination of Desolation could be the image of the beast that the Antichrist's right-hand man, the false prophet, will order to be set up and worshipped. Revelation 13:14, right? There it is. And this is the version I read. And by the signs it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who dwell on earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived. Right? Of course, for Matthew 24:15 to be yet future, the temple in Jerusalem will have to be rebuilt before the tribulation begins. Right? That's the signs Jesus was talking about, right? Pay attention. You know, when the leaves sprout on the trees, that summer's coming. Yeah? You know, when you see a cloud coming from the east, there's a storm coming. Look at the signs, okay? Okay, the temple hasn't been built yet. They're talking about it, right? It's just this could start very soon. Okay, they've got everything in place to rebuild the temple. Mm-hmm. Those who are alive during the tribulation should be watchful and recognize that the breaking of the covenant with Israel and the abomination of desolation will herald the beginning of the worst 3.5 years in history, right? Jesus said that, right? See Matthew 24:21. The worst 3.5 years in history, right? Yes. But then there will be great tribulation such as not been seen from the beginning of the world until now. No, and never will be. Right? Be always on the watch and pray that you may be able to escape all that is about to happen and that you may be able to stand before the Son of Man. Right? Now this abomination of desolation, like the signs for birth pains, right? We see that that they've already put in place the red heifers, which are required to be sacrificed before the temple begins. They got the land set out. They got the plans drawn up, right? And once they start building this, it won't. I mean, it's not going to take many years like it did in the past. They can put buildings together in a matter of months now. So, right, with the equipment they have now, this will be built very quickly. And once it is built, right, that's the sign Jesus is talking about, the beginning of birth pains. Okay. And Jerusalem, which is, I mean, they are, they're at war with everybody right now. And it seems more and more people, if you look at the latest meetings at the UN, most of countries are backing a Palestinian state, and there is no Palestinian state, right? And going against Israel. Everybody is turning against Israel, except for a few countries, right? The U.S. being one of them. And things are going to get interesting here, right? Pretty soon. We are in the beginning of the birth pains, right? You're going into labor, okay? And when you see this stuff, okay, now we will stand firm to the end. We will believe in Jesus and his sacrifice, okay? A lot of Jews don't. They'll go back to the old ways, right? Many of them will find Jesus, but many won't, okay? So, interesting times ahead, right? So, there you go. A little study on one particular aspect, right? Whether you believe it's an object setting up or whether the Antichrist, right? Which is not Satan. Okay, the Antichrist is Satan's, one of his minion will be a man chosen, right, from a certain background, and he'll be given gifts by Satan, okay, to do things, right, and amaze many people, but don't fall for it, right? So there you go. Like I said, I'll put the link to this in the description, and we'll continue on this subject, okay, talking about end times and birth pains and stuff that's been happening and stuff that is going to happen. All right. Interesting times we live in. All right. See you next time.